video games are so different. These scripts are very powerful and very emotional.
Was it challenging to shoot the scenes in the game?
It's easier for me specifically.
What was your reaction when you saw your scenes in the game?
It was even more realistic than I had expected.
Are you a fan of snakes like Nawal?
My personal feeling about snakes is that of great respect. Indy existed there almost for hire for her. So that was always a very comedic kind of thing for me about Nawal.
Before we start the episode, I just wanted to say that you can watch extended episode of this episode and other previous episodes of the podcast by becoming a member of the channel. Not only that, you will also be getting early announcements of who's coming next on the podcast. Your questions, if you have any for my guests, will get the highest priority and your names will be shouted out at the end of every episode. So if you want to support this podcast a little bit more and help me make more episodes every single week, consider becoming a member. All you have to do is click the join button right next to my channel name and you are ready to go. Thank you all so much for the continued support.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. I'm thrilled to be here.
It's a pleasure of mine. And 2025, it's just begun, but I would love to know, what has it been like for you so far?
So far, so much has happened since the year started. I'm based out of Los Angeles, and we had we have had the fires that we've been dealing with in my state, and I feel very humbled and blessed that my life is okay and my home and my family are okay. But it's quite a jarring experience and very big. And so it kind of started that way. It was very weird because the New Year starts and you have all these expectations of the new year, and it was very startling. It was very startling, and it was just kind of the fire itself, was very startling. But very quickly I left. I had to leave because I'm back east now because I work on a project called Mayor of Kingstown. So it's a little weird to be away from home, during this time, because you kind of want to be there. I don't know why, but you kind of want to be there, but it's also nice to be away because the air quality is very bad there. And I just, I hope we get the support that we need. People have been sending so much help. I don't know if you saw the Canadian and the Mexican planes coming to water, but it touched my heart so much to see that, because our politics has not been friendly towards Canada and Mexico at all. So to see them being so generous, something about that, felt good, especially at the beginning of this year,
Yeah. That a lot happened in this time. And it is really cool that a lot of people helped and came together and helped in the best way that they could. And it was really nice to see some positivity coming out as well, with all the insane, intense moments that a lot of people had to deal with at that time. So I'm glad you're safe, and I'm glad everybody else is safe around you. So yeah, it's happy to hear that. Yeah. It's just so cool that you mentioned about Mayors of Kingstown and you're working on it. 3 seasons it's been so far. The 4th season has been booked upon. How has it been like for you to work on a show like that since 2021? The show came out. How has this journey feels like for you?
I love this show. I really love this show. I think the writing is fantastic. It's a very cinematic project.
Yes.
And there's a lot of things now in television specifically that feel more cinematic than they had in years prior. But no doubt the work of Taylor Sheridan and everybody else who's on this show, particularly Hugh Dillon, who's our creator, Dave Erickson, who's our showrunner, and the person I get to work with the most, who is Jeremy Renner, has a cinema background. And everything about the show just feels like we're shooting something that feels, that has a lot of feeling. I mean, kind of, they talk about people go to the theater to think and people go to the movies to feel, and that's what I feel like we're doing on the show all the time. To come into the 4th season is really, it's exciting, because we all love the show so much, but it also feels like just easy. It felt very easy coming back to the show in the 4th season. I find 1st seasons very exciting because you don't know, everything's kind of just starting, and so it can be bumpy. But I get excited about the unknown. So I like it, but there is an ease about the fourth season for sure. A lot of the, difficulties have been ironed out and things like that. And it's just really smooth. Conversations are really smooth. And I'm really happy to be back with the show. I love my character.
Yeah, I think a lot of people love your character, and you've done a great job as well as everybody else in the show. It is so intense at times, and it's so insane. It's so wonderful. It's a great package, and there's so much that happens. It happened in season 3. I know there's nothing to talk about. You can say really, but like, what can people sort of expect with this season?
Yeah, it's true. I can't really divulge story-wise. You wouldn't want me to divulge story-wise. I would, but I don't want to ruin it for you.
Right.
But I feel like in the past seasons, this is a town where they really have gotten stuck. All these characters are kind of stuck in their lives, and it's kind of the thing where I'm trying to get out, but they keep pulling me back in. It's got that kind of feeling about it. And certainly that story has continued throughout, but the desire to really it almost felt like all the characters kind of really wanted to really bolt away in the last season. But in this season, there are much more confrontations. I feel like it's absolutely more confrontational, and drama ensues.
One of the recent things that you all were also part of is this movie Inheritance that was shot on iPhone. How talk me through like experiencing or like working through that movie, because technically speaking it was just shot on an iPhone, but there's more to it. So how was that like?
Yes. Shooting on the iPhone made it very easy for a lot of reasons, because I don't know if you're privy to this, but we shot the movie all over the world.
Right.
We shot the movie. Yeah, we started in the United States, but then we came to India. We shot in Delhi. Yes, we shot in Delhi and around Delhi. We shot in Egypt. We shot in Cairo, and I didn't have any scenes that went on to South Korea, but the film continued on, and unfortunately, I didn't go there with them. But I shot in Egypt and India, and we wouldn't have been able to travel that way. For the same budget, had it not been with the iPhone, because then we would have lights and so many more people and all kinds of things, that you have to drag with you. So it made it pretty simple. And also just within the context of the scenes itself, it was such a smaller deal. So it felt very intimate, because there wasn't all of the production value, in terms of all the production value that's normally there. And so it was really cool. It was really cool. But of course, traveling to all these great places was really exciting too. And it felt like we didn't shut anything down when we were shooting, because, when you have all this other kind of accoutrement and stuff on the set, there's a lot of requirements. But we could shoot in an intimate space inside of a bazaar in Delhi without kind of notifying anybody. So it felt like real life was really kind of happening around us, which was very grounding.
And speaking of recent, you've also worked on the show The Rookie, one episode, which is so cool to see. And your line, the first line, I think your character says to Sean Ashmercer's character that he's aging backward. And I recently got to speak with Sean, and he does age backwards. That's true.
Yeah, right. I know.
Yeah, right.
Yes, that eternal boyish charm.
It is, yes. What was that experience like working on that show? It's such a long running show, fan favorite at the same time.
Yeah, that's such a long running show. That's true. I went and I did a couple episodes actually for them.
Right.
Yeah, this summer. That's a really great cast. They're all really lovely people, and they shoot it in Los Angeles, very, very close to where I live. I live in the Hollywood Hills, and they shoot at the Paramount Pictures lot, which is there on Melrose. And like honestly, a hop away from, just down the hill from my house. So when they called me and asked me to do it, it kind of just felt like playing in my backyard. And I was home, available, and I was really glad to go down and kind of play with them, because they know exactly what that show is, and they celebrate it beautifully. And I was really happy to go play with them.
Yeah, it was so good to see you there on the show. And I was like, yeah, I have seen her. Yes, it's so cool to see. Yeah, it was wonderful. And I love that show. And I feel like I told like a lot of people, my friends of mine, like that show needs to go on forever if that is possible. So yeah,
I
it would be nice.
know. People,
Yeah.
I mean, so many people have asked me about that show, but people really watch that show. I mean, it's got a very, very serious following. And
Yes.
yeah,
Strong addiction for some reason for
yeah,
me. Yeah.
yeah.
Never thought I'd be so addicted. I gotta go with the project that a lot of people enjoyed a lot, and this is for the video game side of things, which is where you were part of Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. Wonderful video game, such a cool story continuing the legacy of Indiana Jones. What was it like to be a part of Indiana Jones in a medium which is different from like the movies, of course?
I really like video games. I didn't play them a lot when I was a kid because we weren't allowed to play them. But all my boy cousins had,
Yeah.
A Sony PlayStation or whatever they had, and I mean, Nintendo even, further back, when I
Right.
was really little. And yeah, we weren't allowed to play, but I was really excited when I would go over somebody's house and they had one because then we would sit there and play. So I have a relationship with video games from when I was a kid, but these video games are so different now. Speaking of cinematic, I mean, these scripts are very powerful and very emotional, and it can make you understand why people become addicted. And you hear stories about people playing for like 30 hours straight. And I get it. I mean, they draw you in very, very deeply. Indiana Jones is a movie from my childhood that I loved very, very much. I grew up with Indiana Jones. So to be a part of this franchise it's a dream.
So I'm curious, like, when did you get to figure out, when did you got told, there was a point where you were told, like, okay, yeah, this is what you're working on, actually?
Yeah, it was, I mean, as soon as I booked it, they called me and they told me what it was. But
Wow.
while I was auditioning for it and stuff, it was just kind of this
Hmm.
this mysterious project,
Wow.
But yeah, as soon as I booked it, they told me, and they were like, "Okay, well, this is what it is, and they want you to do this." And we quickly went to work as soon as I got the call that they wanted me to do it. Then we immediately went into rehearsals, and we immediately started, making plans to go to Sweden to shoot it.
Yeah, and lovely. Every single scene that you're a part of has been amazing, and you obviously have been working alongside Troy Baker and
Yeah.
Alessandra, Indiana and Gina. What has it been like to work with those two actors and with Troy, who has to go through this insanely big role?
Yeah, yeah. They're both such wonderful actors and even more such lovely people. And we shot this together in Stockholm because, Machine Games is
Yes.
and so they brought us out there to shoot it. So there's something about when you go on location and you're kind of away from your own life, and you're kind of there with everybody that you work with. So you kind of, the time you get to kind of spend a little more time, with everybody. And since nobody has anything to do, you end up doing cast dinners and things like that, And so we got to spend some more time with one another. And they're just so lovely. And we were all really excited about the game. And when you're working in that capacity, in terms of the way they shoot the video games, it's very theatrical. It reminded me of doing theater, actually, because, you have the suit on, and and that's a whole thing too, getting the costume, getting the fit on, um it's kind of like, I don't know how to describe it, but it's different than just putting on a costume, because you got this like head mic and stuff, and it's like gear, you
Yeah.
know and so that's the whole thing. But once we start, we're just kind of in this space, um and then we start working with one another inside this space, and later they add, all of the visuals that you see when you play the game. So we really have to imagine it very, very strongly, which is almost the opposite of what I was telling you about inheritance.
Mhm.
because that was so actual, you know? And that's what I mean, that this is more theatrical in that way. But you know what was really cool is that Alessandra and I hadn't really had as much experience with video games. I have a bit, but Alessandra really hadn't at all. But Troy had. And Troy was so helpful in terms of asking really specific questions from the directors and the producers that, you know, I wouldn't have thought to ask, but that make a difference, you know, in terms of how things are perceived. Like, for example, when we were in some of the Egyptian parts of the story, you know, we're just in this kind of cubicle shooting it. And, you know, like this oracle that we're looking at is supposed to be in the distance. But Troy really, really was helpful in accessing specificity, because it's one thing if this, you know, oracle is the size of a house. It's another thing if it's the size of a mountain.
Right.
And, you know, we don't really have that, those answers. And so, and sometimes they didn't yet either, but it was very important for you know, us to execute. And so he was really helpful with those kinds of things.
Yeah, definitely. Tribeca is also like a celebrated actor in terms of video games. He's done so much. And you mentioned about like putting on the motion capture suit and doing all of that instead of this location in a volume where you have not anything in terms of props per se. Like it's not, everything is imaginary. What were the challenges that you faced at the time? Because this is sort of also new, where you have to imagine so much. Was that a challenge? And but as you mentioned that you also have a theater background, so was that a challenge?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's, you know, in the early days of when you begin like drama school, there's all these trust exercises. I don't know if you're familiar with the one, you know, you like fall back and everybody's supposed to catch. And really it's because there's so much trust involved, because it's such a collaborative process, you know, what we do, especially as actors. I mean, I think in many arts, but especially as actors. And so it's easier for me than everybody's not this way, but it's easier for me specifically to trust. I really do trust the people that I work with, but especially when you're working with people whose work you admire, who's you know, who you're excited about working with, then you can really feel better to trust. The challenge is when you don't feel safe to trust. That can be very challenging, and that's not an ideal situation. But in this case, you know, every day I felt very taken care of and supported by the team that we were working with. You know, our director is a well-known theater director on this project. And so he would bring that to us in the mornings when we would come, just us actors and the director. We would get together. Tom Keegan was the director on this project. We would get together and kind of do, you know, drama school stuff. You know what I mean? Like really kind of do relaxation exercises and kind of communal based exercises, you know, to really kind of help us to, because, you know, as artists, we are all people of frequency. I mean, we all are people of frequency, but artists and probably nobody more than musicians, because there's, you know, a frequency of being in this space together. And Troy has a background in music. He is a musician himself. I'm sure you know that. Yeah. And so it was easy for us to drop in. And that really helped. That really helped, because always the challenge ultimately is believability. You just want it to be believable at the end of the day, you know?
Right, yeah.
So everything is forwarding towards that end.
We'll get back into the conversation in just a few seconds, but I just wanted to let you know that if you're enjoying this episode, consider hitting the like button and also subscribing so that you can watch more episodes just like this every single week. And also hit that notification bell icon so that you don't miss any notification on when the next episode is coming out. And now we will jump back into the conversation. Obviously, all the recordings that all the shooting has done is done in a volume. You're seeing in a different way, but when you see the game, it's completely different. It doesn't even feel like you shot in this location here. It feels like a completely real thing. What was looking back at that, or did you get to look back at those videos, like the completely done, processed work of like how it's going to look like in the game? Did you get to see that? And if you did, like, What was your thoughts on that?
No, not really. I mean, we didn't really, once we shot it, my work is done. And then it kind of belongs to them. And so I didn't really see the final product until it was really the final product. And it's just exciting, it was even more realistic than I had expected in my mind because I feel like the advancements in video games always get better and better with every video game. So I was only thinking about it with regards to what I had seen last in terms of video games. So it was just everything, the animation, everything, the quality, everything. I thought I was just excited to see it.
Yeah, it's so amazing to see how far the games have come, like in terms of cinematic, and it looks so much more movie-like, and just like any other show, movie, however it is, it just feels so much immersive. And that's why there's reason why games are now turned into shows or movies, like The Last of Us, Fallout, are those things. It's just so amazing to see. And you've been part of so many different projects, of course. Is there any project that you think in your mind could really turn into a video game?
I mean, I guess technically anything could. There's no reason anything to stop anywhere, but I don't know. I was recently talking to a friend about Moonstruck.
Ooh.
That might be an interesting video game project because, it's kind of otherworldly in terms of its themes.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe.
You never know. A lot of otherworldly stuff has happened in games, so you never know. So you can see might happen. Yeah, it could be cool to see. What was the last or recent game that you played, and like what was it like?
Well, the most recent game I played was this game, but just to kind of see it. Gosh, it's been so long since I've played a game, like really played, like so long. Last time I was really involved in playing games, Mike Tyson had just released Punch-Out.
Wow.
And so it was a long, that's when I was really into them, but it's these games that I have kind of worked and been a part of that kind of came into my ether, like Indiana Jones, that you can imagine, especially if I haven't played games in that long, like how impressive it is, but the scripts, just the scripts alone are like a movie.
Like a movie. Yeah. And that's why there's movies and shows being made out of that. And now that you've played Indiana Jones, now that you know that, okay, the storytelling is so different now, do you think, or do you have an interest to okay, let me try more games?
Oh, I would love to. Yeah, I loved working on it. And like I said, I had worked on a couple before, in smaller capacities. Yeah, I'm really into it. I'm really into the motion capture suit. I'm really into, and the reason that I had even kind of been a part of it, I have a dance background, and I think when, that they were really working with stunt people and dancers and things like that, because there's a consideration that, your body is involved, but as the video games have gotten more and more advanced, the depth of what you bring to it as an actor can be more and more meaningful. And so I think that's why you see, more actors and directors that are experienced with directing narrative coming into, the space.
Your character Nawal is so incredible because one of the things that I really like about her is she's a big fan of snakes, and Indiana is not. So I want to know, are you a fan of snakes, or you're a different kind of pet person?
To be honest, my personal feeling about snakes is that of great respect. There's something very biblical about a snake, for obvious reasons, but also, we're in the year of the snake, the Chinese year of the snake right now. So I feel like much respect to the snake.
Wow, that's beautiful. Yeah, I think for me, I think if I see a snake, yeah, I'm running. I'm gonna be siding with Indy. Let's go together, sir. Yeah, it's not for us, but it's really cool.
It depends on how big it is.
Yeah, it depends on how big it is. That's true.
You
Yes.
know.
Yes, yes. Oh my God. I love the one interaction that there's a moment where Nawal and Indy are in this place. I think they just got out of this explosive moment and they're looking at this wall and there's a hole in it and the snake comes out, but Indiana has not seen it yet. And he's,
Yeah.
I think, talking and Nawal is like, oh, look at you. It was such a great moment, right? A small, great moment. And he goes and says like, I'm just more of a dog person. And she just simply just picks it up and just lays it down, lets it go. It was so cool, great moment. Love
Yeah,
seeing this.
in the conversations that Tom and I had about Naval's character was always, and her relationship with Indy was always kind of like one that they had kind of developed a friendship, but often she was sort of Indy existed there almost for hire for her, and so that was always a very comedic kind of thing for me about Naval, and so we had fun playing with that in as many moments as we could, because Indy is this adventurer and obviously very kind of defiant of these high risk scenarios that they get into, but kind of Noel's coercion of him to go into these spaces was something that we got to play around with a lot, and that was one of
yeah, definitely. Love their moments. It is funny, and I love to see how she gives him like some of these like jobs to do, and he was like, okay, I gotta do this.
yes.
One of the things that one of the really cool relationship also is like with Gina, and that is more of a, I would say more of a serious relationship, believe, because she has that with her sister as well. Both of them, she has a relationship. What was it like exploring that with Alessandra and going through with Gina?
That was very beautiful because Nawal did have a relationship with her sister that was very personal, and so Gina is by extension sort of a part of that. So there, while we got to play, a lot of charm and comedy with Indy, there was a lot of opportunity. Well, we tried to find opportunities where, Nawal's vulnerability could be tested. And Nawal's a character that always fights against that vulnerability. But we tried to find moments where it was tested often with Gina. And Alessandra is such a lovely, gentle actress, so it made it easy.
Absolutely. And of course, it's Indiana Jones. It's one of your movies that you watched growing up. Gotta ask, where would you rank the 3 Indiana Jones movies?
Oh, I don't know. I think they were all great. What I liked as a child, I don't know if it always speaks to the actual quality of one or another, but Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, I think.
Okay, all right.
That stuck out for me, but it could just be the age I was.
I mean, hey,
which is yours?
To be honest, I feel like really bad about it, but I'm going to confess that I've only watched the first movie and that's it.
Well, that's really the only really, really real one, to see.
Right.
The rest are kind of just extensions of that one anyway.
True. I did really enjoy everything about the first movie. It was really fun. And I was like, I gotta
enough.
watch.
You had enough, right?
I had enough. I guess so. But I do want to check out the other 2 movies and see how what it is, because everybody always talks about it's the second movie that's number 1 for me, and for some people it's the third movie, and it's all these conversations and discussions, and
they kind of all blend together for me in reality. Just like the Rocky movies. Like when you're a kid like that and you watch that, it's just all kind of
true. Right. Yeah, it's like it's just a whole extension. It feels like one in together. Yeah. So yeah, true. You're completely right. I love that. In Indiana Jones, the game, we had so many different locations that a player goes to. If you had to pick locations for your adventure, what those locations would be?
I just got back from an amazing Northern Lights expedition in Finland.
Ooh, wow.
It was exquisite. It was exquisite. And I'll tell you, I don't really post a lot of personal pictures ever on my social media. It's really just for work. But the pictures that we took were so exquisite. I was like, maybe I should share these. People should see this. This is
Yes.
amazing. And I haven't yet, but maybe I will. But yeah, I've spent some time in Scandinavia. Like I said, we shot in Stockholm, and this just trip to Finland just kind of came up. And it's been always a dream of mine to see the Northern Lights from Scandinavia. And of course, we went to the Laplands, but unfortunately, the lights weren't out. They didn't come when we were there because it's kind of like seeing a shooting star, the Northern Lights. You don't see them and
Right.
kind of catch it. So I would like to go back there to see the Northern Lights, but even though I just got back and it was pretty incredible, but yeah, I didn't get to see the Northern. And I know you can see the Northern Lights from Canada, but they have their kind of magical woodland fairyland culture, in Scandinavia.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool. But Egypt for sure. And I got to shoot there after we did the video game. I got to shoot there for Inheritance. But Egypt is magical. It's really I mean, you can't even believe it when you're seeing the pyramids because you learn about it in school and ancient civilization, and then suddenly you're there. And shooting a movie at the pyramids was definitely on my bucket list. I mean, it wasn't even on my bucket list, actually. That's how big of a dream it was. But yeah, another location is India. I told you how much I like India, and I've been there. Luckily, been lucky to go a couple of times. But India is so wonderful because you can't take a bad picture in India. There's the colors, the flavors, they come through the photographs. I've never been to New Zealand, and I'd like to. I think it might be even though I've never been there, I have this feeling that it might be the most magical place on earth. I don't know.
Yeah. Is there a game that you've kind of found out about, like where you told about, like, the story was so like well told, like people have been talking about it? Is there any game that you remember at the top of your head that have been talked about a lot in terms of storytelling?
In terms of storytelling, in terms of the depth of the narrative, yeah, I worked on one. I can't remember the name of it right now. But that was the first script that came to me. I can't remember that, but it's very famous, and the fact that it slipped my mind is just embarrassing. But I feel like any video game that is new will have depth of storytelling. I don't know if it's I think that's just how they're made now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really. I worked on Star Trek, the series, which I didn't work on the video game, but I did work on the series. And I think Star Trek has that quality also. Even the original Star Trek, they would deal with like very big kind of humanity driven storylines in these outer space settings, and certainly the new series does as well, alongside fabulous costumes, and kind of Shakespearean storylines. And that's how I feel about modern video games.
I gotta talk about like one of the upcoming movies that you can be part of. I don't know what much you can talk about. Electric State, that is coming out in March. I'm excited to see that. It looks pretty so cool and exciting. How was it been like to work on that project? Anything that you can share?
I think that project is really cool, and also kind of delves into this whole kind of sci-fi world to an extent, alongside very deep themes that are very humanity driven. Yeah, I really enjoyed working on that. I think they have just an incredible production, the Russo brothers do. And the quality is just so high. And we shot that, the stuff that I shot was in downtown Los Angeles. And so again, very easy for me, yeah, we were just right there. But the whole team was fantastic.
It's so exciting to see how many projects that you've been a part of. So many incredible shows, movies, and video games as well. But I'm curious to know, like, who was Necar during her time in one of the biggest shows that you mentioned earlier, 24? and who she is now?
Well, there's quite a few years between now and then. That was 2010, I think,
Yeah, I
when I
think
was
so.
doing
Yeah.
Jackie
Right.
was 10. I mean, I'm still the same person, but I was just kind of 24 was the first series I started working on as a regular on the show. I had done many different things before, but it was the first series I had spent a really long time doing, and I had been doing a lot of independent films and stuff before that. And I think I was really, really I was really excited about coming onto that project for lots of reasons. Like I said, I'd worked with Anil Kapoor on that, who is, I mean, by the time I met Anil, he'd get this lifetime of work, behind him. And so to say that I was working with one of the greatest pros in the world, is an understatement. And of course, Kiefer Sutherland, who comes from a family of actors, and Cherry Jones, who was a New York stage darling, that I got to work with on the show. So it was all very, very, very exciting. And I was really, open, and I was really kind of just, I just really, every moment felt like the the big audition.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But now, it's been so many years since then, and I've had so many different kinds of jobs since then. But I gotta admit, every day when I come on the set, I still feel as excited, and I still feel just as open. And that's kind of, I think, the challenge in life, I think, is to kind of see behind the curtain, but still stay excited, you know? Um, and yeah, so, to a large degree professionally, I feel definitely more comfortable on sets than when I first started, you know? I had a lot of superstitions that I don't adhere to anymore, Um, and and so that's good.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know
Definitely.
yeah, but those are things that you do. I mean, I can still be super, like, I still knock twice and things like
Mm.
that, like knock
Yeah.
on
Okay.
wood. I'll still knock on wood. But lots of things like my preparation and things like that, I just have a lot more confidence.
Yeah, definitely. With all these years, it just helps develops your confidence. And you're mentioning about being excited about every single project. I'm always curious because somebody who is like me, who's like I'm still young, I'm still going through things. How do you keep your momentum going? And especially with everything that's happening, and at the same time trying to stay excited and having that confidence to work towards your next project.
You know, Certainly confidence comes with experience. You know, the excitement kind of can come from the unknown. I didn't realize this until somebody had told me that apparently anxiousness and excitement live in the same part of your body, but depending on how you witness it, it comes out for you as anxiety or as excitement. And I'm just one of these people that I turned towards excitement naturally, which is lucky. But I do remember a moment that I was backstage. I was doing a play many, many, many years ago. And when you're backstage before the curtain goes up, sometimes you kind of peek behind the curtain to see who's there. So if you see your parents or somebody, where they're sitting. So you see what part of the house you can play to. And suddenly I got really nervous. Like my heart started to beat really fast. And I got really, and that was such an unusual emotion for me because I don't usually feel that way. And and we were just about to go, and my scene was the first scene that opened the play, which is actually quite nerve wracking because if somebody else starts it, then you join the thing. But if you start it, you know, so my heart started beating, and all of a sudden I took a moment and I thought, wait a minute, you're excited. You love this. And then I thought, oh yeah, I'm excited. And so it just kind of clicked. So I think there's a lot of, I think that's a really personal personal thing, keeping that excitement. I think there's a lot of just spirituality around that, around maintaining your excitement about everything in life, but particularly about your art. I think there's a certain amount of discipline, because your discipline will get you artistically through, if your inspiration kind of doesn't that day, and that's exciting. That's exciting. The study of discipline, and so I think though, and when I say discipline, does that sound kind of harsh? Discipline doesn't have to mean something
No.
harsh. Just
No.
your practice. Some people will call it a practice.
I just want to say thank you so much, Necar, for joining me today and talking about everything about your work and what you've done with Indiana Jones and Great Circle. It was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so lovely talking with you.